From the Life Application Study Bible. Jesus told his disciples not to tell anyone he was the Christ, the Messiah, because at this point they didn't fully understand the significance of that confession, nor would anyone else. People will still expected the Messiah to come as a conquering king, but even though Jesus was the Messiah, he still had to suffer, be rejected by the leaders, be killed, and rise from the dead. Later, when the disciples saw all this happen to Jesus, they would understand what the Messiah had come to do. Only then would they be equipped to share the good news that the Messiah had come to bring his kingdom to people's hearts. At this point, Jesus began teaching his disciples more clearly and specifically what they could expect from his kingdom, so that they would not be surprised when these things happened and would remember that he told them about them in advance. Later, they would understand that he would return in great glory to set up his eternal kingdom. To take up a cross meant to carry one's own cross to the place of crucifixion. Many Galileans had been killed that way by the Romans, and Jesus would face this method of execution as well. With this word picture, Jesus presented a clear and challenging description of the Christian life. Being his disciple means putting aside selfish desires, shouldering one's cross, and following him. It requires our recommitment to serve him each day. It is simple yet demanding. For the original 12 disciples, this meant literal suffering and death. For believers today, it may mean the same, whether or not we die for our beliefs, however. This means understanding that we belong to him and that we live to serve his purposes. Consider this. Do you think of your relationship with God primarily in terms of what's in it for you, which is considerable, or in terms of what you can do for him? Are you willing to deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow him? Anything less is not discipleship. It is merely superficial lip service. If this present life is most important to us, we will do everything we can to protect it. We will not want to endanger our safety, health, or comfort. By contrast, if following Jesus is most important, we may find ourselves in unsafe, unhealthy, and uncomfortable places. We may risk death, but we will not fear it because we know that Jesus will rise us to eternal life. Nothing material can compensate for the loss of eternal life. Jesus' disciples are to use their lives on earth not merely to please themselves, but to serve God and others. Luke's Greek audience would have had difficulty understanding a God who could die. Their gods were like superheroes. Jesus' Jewish audience also would have been perplexed by a Messiah who would let himself be captured and killed. They expected immediate victory. Both groups would be ashamed of Jesus if they did not look past his death to his glorious resurrection and second coming. Then they would see Jesus not as a loser, but as the Lord of the universe, who through his death brought forgiveness and rescue to those who believe in him. When Jesus said some would not die without seeing the kingdom, he may have been referring to 1. Peter, James, and John, who would witness the transfiguration 8 days later. 2. All who would witness his resurrection and ascension, or 3. All who would take part in the spread of the church after Pentecost. Jesus' listeners would not have to wait for a different future Messiah. His kingdom was among them in those who believed, and it would one day come in power.